A prelude to history. The date, September 16th, 1811. The place is here, in the great valley of the upper Green River. Last winter, starving and attacked by Indians, 3 Kentuckians and explorers, John Hoback, Jacob Resner, and Edward Robinson, passed near this country, near enough to be fascinated by it. On this date, they have returned on a much more important mission. They are the guides for Wilson Price Hunt and the Astorians. This is the beginning of the great Western fur trade. Far away in the city of New York, John Jacob Astor has decided to build an empire in the West. He will break the Canadian monopoly of the fur trade. He will establish Astoria at the mouth of the Columbia River. These are the men who will fight the battle. Their captain is Wilson Price Hunt. He has led the band up the Missouri River, across the plains, and now over Union Pass. Only Indians have touched this place before, but these white men will spread the fame of the Green River Valley and the riches of its beaver. Hunt says, "The country for some distance down this Spanish River, the Green River, appears to be very favorable for hunting beaver." These words will be prophetic. But right now, these Astorians can't stop long in the Valley of the Green. Winter is approaching. Their food supplies are low. Now you see the hunters, guides, and interpreters fanning out ahead. The rest of the party are French-Canadian engagés, men of all work. And one is a woman. She goes by the name of the Dorian woman, the Indian wife of the trapper Pierre Dorian. And with her are her 2 children, the first European offspring to cross this valley. And so on the 18th of September, 1811, the Astorians passed through. They will spread the fame of the Green River Valley and the riches of the beaver. They are the beginning. And the 3 guides, Hoback, Resner, and Robinson, will become the ghosts of this valley. Hoback will leave his name on the next river they cross. Before next spring, far to the west, these 3 and Pierre Dorian will be dead, massacred by Indians. One of the Dorian children will also die, but the Dorian woman will escape and take her place in the annals of the brave. The survivors of this party will straggle into Astoria in 1812, but now the route has been found. Each year more men will return. This is the discovery, the beginning of the meeting ground known as the Rendezvous on the Green. Before you now, the ground is being prepared for the sacred pipe lighting ceremony. This old Indian is banishing the evil spirits from this sacred ground. Occasionally he spots a particularly harmful spirit and stomps it out with his feet as well. He will brush away the remaining evil spirits with his eagle feather. Soon representatives of the mountain men and Indians will join together for the pipe lighting ceremony. Most tribes considered tobacco sacred, and tobacco pipes were indispensable at trade and peace negotiations. Now the pipe is offered first to the sky, the earth, and then the four directions, east, west, north, and south. Indians believed the tobacco smoke rose up to the Great Spirit as a prayer. So potent were its effects that when someone rose in council with a pipe in his hand, his listeners knew that he would speak only the truth. And whenever two foes sat down to parley, the smoke of the peace pipe would cleanse their hearts and ensure that their accord would last forever. Friends, the moon has come and gone many times since we last met. Some of us have gone under, and new ones have come to join us. With this ancient ceremony of the four directions, we welcome all of you to the Green River Rendezvous. Early in the 19th century, someone in Europe designed a hat made of beaver fur. Immediately, no well-dressed man could possibly appear in public without his beaver topper. The price of pelts soared, and all known sources of beaver were soon depleted. The only land left was the unexplored mountain region, the heart of the Rockies, inhabited only by Indians. Finally, one intrepid American decided to follow the route of Wilson Price Hunt and come back to the Green. His name, General William Ashley, a wealthy merchant and politician from St. Louis. In 1822, Ashley advertised for 100 men to ascend the River Missouri, there to engage in the business of trapping and trading. Among the young men, boys really, who answered that call were Jim Bridger, Jedediah Smith, Bill Sublette, and Tom Fitzpatrick. In 1823, Ashley sent Jed Smith up the Missouri with a band of trappers and Delaware Indian guides. From there, they struck boldly across the plains. They swept around the Bighorns and cut through the Owl Creeks. Smith and company spent that winter with the Crow in the Wind River Valley. Come spring, they became the first white men to cross South Pass, leading down to the Siskiyou, as the Indians called the Green River. They summered in this trapper's paradise, but by fall they were running short of supplies and sent word back to Ashley. Early in 1825, Ashley ascended the Platte to the Sweetwater, then traveled down the Big Sandy to the Green. He moved down to the Green till he came to a major stream flowing in from the west. He named this Henry's Fork in honor of his partner Andrew Henry. Here, General Ashley pitched his camp and waited for Smith and the other trapping parties. He'd also told his trappers to inform the Shoshoni and Ute tribes that he would be around with things to trade for fur. Thus, in 1825, at a point about 75 miles southeast of here, General Ashley convened the first of the rendezvous. Over the following month, Ashley's men trickled into the encampment on Henry's Fork, bringing in packloads of fur. Even more slowly, the shy, roaming bands of Indians came to see what the white men had to offer. The trappers, after a year in the wilderness, were able to relax and enjoy themselves in safety from all but each other. They drank, fought, and lied until the beavers' thickening winter coats lured them back to the trap lines. As for the Indians, they lived in harmony with the earth. When they met Ashley, they encountered quite a different culture. While they benefited from the copper pots and steel knives, ready-made paint, and glass beads, they were also introduced to something that would change their lives. They tasted whiskey. They didn't know it in 1825, but suddenly a way of life that had sustained them for 10,000 years was endangered. The heartland of a great continent was changing forever, and all because of a hat. Ashley left the mountains in 1826 and eventually became governor of Missouri. He sold his fur company to William Sublette, Jedediah Smith, and Davy Jackson, but the rendezvous survived. Each of the next 15 years saw a rendezvous somewhere in the Intermountain West. From the Poposia to South Park, Bear Lake, Pierre's Hole, and most often here in the Valley of the Green. Competing companies held out for different sites, but geography was against them and relations with the Blackfeet made it difficult, so they all came back here. The scene before us now is Fort Bonneville, sometimes known as Fort Nonsense. Captain Bonneville began this fort with the idea of making a permanent trading post here, but the mountain men and Indians told him he couldn't winter his horses and mules here because of the deep snow. So he never went beyond the completion of a log stockade and a few huts. Its actual location is 12 miles west of here, just beyond Daniel Junction, above the mouth of Horse Creek. The trappers and Indians have been gathering here for weeks. The packs are loaded with fur, and they're anxious for the arrival of the trade wagons from the east. These trappers are a varied lot. Some of them are free trappers, but the majority of them are company trappers. Most of them are from the mountains of Kentucky and Tennessee, but there are a lot of Frenchmen among them as well. The free trappers are on their own. Their credit is usually good, and they can run up a bill with any of the trading outfits. They have to pay their bills for sure, but they can sell their fur wherever they please. Company trappers work for wages. They're paid a large sum, $200, maybe $300 a year. And they have to bring in a minimum of 200 beaver skins, which their company then sells for as much as $4 a pound. Now you see, coming out of the stockade, its planner and builder, Captain Bonneville. Captain Benjamin Louis Eulalie de Bonneville was born in France and brought to New York when he was a year old. He attended public school in New York, and when he was 18, entered the United States Military Academy at West Point, graduating with honors in 1815. Several years of duty on the frontier posts of Missouri gave him a vigorous interest in what lay beyond the frontier. While other men and boys had a vision of owning a circus, Bonneville wanted to go into the wilderness and become a fur trader. He finally obtained a 2-year leave of absence from the Army, raised some money, and here he is with trade goods and strong men, having the time of his life in the middle of the fur country. Bonneville's commercial efforts are a bust, but he is a pioneer. He is the first to bring wagons over South Pass, and even though the captain is on leave from the Army, he has orders to explore the country and make detailed notes on all the Indians he encounters. The War Department also wants to know if there isn't maybe a big fat British lion fooling around in America's backyard. You see, this is the time of the big tug-of-war between Uncle Sam and His Britannic Majesty for control of this Northwest Territory. When Bonneville built his stockade here, he mentioned that he might make a permanent post out of it. Upon hearing this, the mountain men gave the captain a horse laugh. "Why, Captain," they said, "the snow lays 4 feet deep here, and neither a horse nor mule could live through a winter. So the Injuns say, why, even the buffalo and elk leave. You build a fort here, you better call it Fort Nonsense." Bonneville laughed it off. not explaining that what he meant was an army post that could be supplied by the United States government. Such a post would be a mighty handy place in case that old British lion decided to roar a bit. Right now, Bonneville is seeking information about different strips of country he hasn't seen. Trapper and Indian are probably telling him that he can't take his wheels any further. To the Indians, Bonneville is a good friend and a great curiosity. He is, in fact, the first bald-headed man they've seen who hasn't been scalped. Now here, that newcomer is Joe Walker, and it looks like he has news for Bonneville. Joe is one of the captain's right-hand men. Joe learned his mountain craft from the woodsmen of the Tennessee mountains. Bonneville says that Walker is a hickory bow of the best and the toughest. He's followed the dim trails of the frontier for a long time, and he knows what he's doing. Once Joe had some hard luck and lost his whole outfit. Half starved, he wandered into a Hudson Bay post on the Columbian River where he was treated royally. When he got ready to leave, the Britisher in charge wouldn't sell, lend, or give him a dime's worth of equipment. This made Joe sore, and he said, "Why, you doggone Britisher, I got a rich uncle whose name is Sam, and someday he'll come in and bury your whole darn outfit and throw it out the window." Whether that Britisher got the idea or not, Joe was right, and Uncle Sam was moving in. Here they are, the first of the hard-riding, hell-raising Americans, Black Harris and his free trappers. Old Joe Walker picked up their tracks. Captain Bonneville is glad they're here. Bonneville is still pretty much of a greenhorn at this trading business, but he's learning fast. If he can make a deal with these free trappers before the other traders get in, he'll be a long jump ahead in buying good fur. These free trappers not only have a lot of fur, but it's the very best that will come into the rendezvous. Captain has been saving the top of his trade goods for their arrival. If the captain can get away with this trade, he will be half even with Lucian Fontenelle of the American Fur Company for snatching his Delaware hunters last fall by offering him more pay. This Black Mose Harris, he's rough as a cob. He was Ashley trained, which makes him an old-timer, and he doesn't let anybody forget it. But he never liked wearing another man's collar, so he's been a free trapper for quite a spell. Of course, if trapping isn't too pressing, Mose will run errands and carry messages for the big outfit. Last winter, he took a message for sublet from Bear Lake to Fort Laramie. It was in the dead of the winter, and the Indians weren't supposed to be out, but when Black Harris got out into open country, he had to sneak through many hostile Indians. He turned loose his mule in order to make his tracks less visible and took off on foot. He survived on a piece of jerky and a pair of worn-out moccasins, but he made it all right. When he got back to his own camp on the Little Snake River, he told his pals it was the quietest trip he ever made. Not until the next rendezvous did the other trappers find out just what Harris's trip had really been like. For safety's sake, these free trappers have learned it's better to stick together and work under one leader. Black Harris has good knowledge of beaver, kissed a lot of Indians, and he's staying alive. But right now, it looks like he wants to get down to raising hell. And he's developed the means already. Hey, look out! Here come the big boys, the wild men of the mountains. Now this little cayuse named Kit Carson doesn't weigh much over 110 pounds soaking wet. But he's the equivalent of 10 catamounts and half a dozen grizzlies all in one hide. A saddler in St. Louis lost his apprentice and offered a shilling reward for his return. The apprentice, who was Kit Carson, aged 15 years, lit out up the Missouri with a trapping outfit and just kept going. Later on, he came over to the mountains with Ashley and never looked back. He's a quiet, good-natured man as a rule, but when he's prodded too far, he's just as dangerous as a snake with a new skin. Bully Shinar found that out when he got to fooling with Kit's Arapaho girl over on Horse Creek. Shinar's pals packed him off and planted him in the rocks. Kit has an incredible memory for geographical detail, and he can describe a strip of country or back-trail himself in the dark with such accuracy that the other mountain men take their hats off to him. Kit has no way of foretelling the future, but when the silk hat comes along, Kit will say, "Whoa, hell's paved with silk hats." But beaver hats or silk hats, Kit is cutting his mark on a country that will last forever. Now, if you want to ride a mountain, climb a mountain, or ride a river, you can't do much better than throw in with Jed Smith. Here's Jed. He's a strong Methodist, and he can quote the Gospels as well as he can trap a beaver or get upwind of an enemy. Jed is restless, and he's covered more of the country from the Missouri to the Golden Gate than any other man of his time or some time to come. He's 28 years old, and he will never see 30, but they still call him Old Jed Smith. Now, Joe Meek. Joe Meek never gives two hoops or a holler, rendezvous or not. It isn't that Joe is unsociable, it's just that life is one grand rendezvous to him. Joe is, indeed, the merry mountain man. He says, "I got a powerful lot of friends, and I sure like to be with them. But if there ain't none of them handy, why, old Ma Nature herself is a mighty swell gal to travel with." Now there you got Jim Bridger and Bill Sublett trying to pull one another off their horses. They've probably been playing strong arm for the last 11 months. William Sublett, old Cutface, the peer of the mountain men. Like Bridger, he's a product of the Kentucky and Missouri frontiers. He's from a wealthy family, but he cut loose on his own, pawned a few possessions, and struck west with Ashley in 1823. He's one of the partners who bought out Ashley, and he'll make a neat pile in fur trade. Sublett is a rugged businessman who knows the mountains, and when the going gets rough, he's right there in the lead. Nothing stands in his way for very long. And you guessed it, this man before you, William Sublett, left his mark on the valley in more ways than one. 100 years after his presence in these mountains, this land took his name for a new county. Last but certainly not least, we have Jim Bridger, Old Gabe. He's the curly he-wolf of the mountain men. He came in here first, and he came with the best of them. He knows the mountains and the plains. He is up to the beaver, and his rifle Honey Gal can knock down a buffalo further away than most people can see. Jim is famous for his stories about the wonders of the mountains. He likes to tell about the echoing canyon down toward the Great Salt Lake. That canyon's one of Jim's favorite camping spots. When he gets ready to bed down at night, he yells, "Time to wake up, Jim!" And he swears that exactly 7 hours and 10 minutes later, the echo comes back. "Time to get up, Jim!" At one of the rendezvous, Dr. Marcus Whitman dug a arrowhead out of Jim's withers and was worried about infection. But Jim said, "Gosh, Doc, never worry about that. Meat don't spoil in the mountains." Before you now is the man responsible for Marcus Whitman's venture west, the Reverend Samuel Parker. Because of his age, the missionary board had first rejected Parker's application to minister to the Indians, but he was persistent, and the board finally agreed to his plans, if he could find a younger traveling companion. His choice of a young doctor, Marcus Whitman, proved beneficial, as Whitman's successful treatment of an outbreak of cholera among the mountain men changed the attitude of the men toward the missionaries. This was apparent at the first religious service in what is now Bonneville, Wyoming, conducted by Parker on August 23, 1835. Parker stated, "Captain Bridger's men conducted themselves with great propriety and listened with attention. In addition to paving the way for the missionaries in this wild, uncharted wilderness, Parker's journal of maps and optimistic information was to become the essential guide for later travelers on the Oregon Trail. In fact, in his journal, Parker detailed Whitman's removal of that Blackfoot arrowhead from Jim Bridger. Of the operation, Parker reported, it was difficult in consequence of the arrow being hooked at the point from striking a large bone. It was stated by Parker that the Reverend Marcus Whitman pursued the operation with great self-possession and perseverance, and Captain Bridger manifested equal firmness. Next to the chiefs and the Council of Elders, an important organization in most tribes was the Leading Soldier Society. Members of this society were the shock troops in war, and they did sentinel duty in dangerous country. They dictated the pattern of the camps and kept order within. When on the move, they directed the traffic. It was their duty to see to it that the tribe moved in a safe and orderly fashion. During the seasonal hunts, these men were the game wardens. They made sure no one sneaked out and disturbed the buffalo before the whole tribe was ready. Their laws were strict, and they could punish offenders according to the seriousness of their crime. Only the very top men were eligible to join, and they had to prove themselves worthy to belong to the society. Once a man was a member, he was treated with great honor and respect. The most famous of all the soldier societies were the Crazy Dogs of the Cheyenne. The Sioux had their Little Horns, and these fellows that just arrived here today are the Antelope Men of the Shoshoni. The arrival of these soldiers must prove that the major part of the tribe will be here soon. And now here they come. These are the Shoshoni, or Snakes of the Mountain. The Shoshoni are not the only tribe to make their bid for the Foo-for-Ah at Rendezvous. Most of the great mountain tribes, the Crow, Nez Perce, Bannocks, and Flatheads, will come to camp along the Green. But this is Shoshoni country, and they are the first to arrive. Nobody can understand why their chief, Ma-Woma, is called Little Chief, because there's nothing small about him in stature or in heart. He's a statesman and a soldier, a wise leader, and one who strikes fear into the hearts of his enemies. He says, I want peace for my people and all the good things that come with it. But if the enemy must bring war, let him come, and I will turn the Sietskidee red with his blood. Kenton K, the sun priest or medicine man, works closely with Ma-Woma. Politically, Kenton K is a fast operator and very persuasive. His good advice to Ma-Woma helps keep the tribe headed toward plenty of meat, grass, and water. His practice as a healer isn't all hocus pocus. Indeed, his cures are as powerful as those used by the white medical men of the era. Kenton K is deeply spiritual. He says, when the Gray One calls, I will follow the whistling crane out onto the spirit trail and go to my father's lodge in the sandhills. Ma-Woma's senior wife is another great influence on the chief. Her name is Wadze Wipe, which means grass cutter. She sees to it that Ma-Woma's lodge is carefully tended and that all his needs are met. She teaches the young women to tan hides, make clothes, and cure meat. Her own work is a splendid example of talent. Although the women have no official vote in the councils, when when the chief holds forth on tribal policy, one can hear an undercurrent of wisdom that can only come from Wadze Wipe. She is a good wife for a chief. Right now, Bonneville and Bridger are buttering up those Shoshoni leaders because the Indian packs are loaded with fur. But the way Bridger is glancing back there at the chief's time, well, he's playing up to her now. I don't think he's just exactly got trapping on his mind. Not that the little lady seems to object. Oh, here it is. Old Gabe is feeling might romantic and is, of course, going to do the right thing by approaching the old man and offering him a horse for the lady's hand. Well, the chief isn't going to go for that. He says 5 horses. But evidently Ma Woma can't see Jim across a small buffalo waller yet. When it comes to a trade, Jim is used to the Indian ways, but he's getting mighty anxious, and that little gal is looking prettier every minute. No. Wait a second. Well, all right. 5 horses it may be. Looks like he's getting a pretty good deal, though. Yeah? Well, there you are. That's the Trapper's Bride. Chief gave Bridger a pretty bad time, but Jim is all set now. He has a partner who will pitch his camp, haul the water, chop wood, flesh the beaver skins, tan hides, make his clothes, and have her babies after sundown so it doesn't interfere with her other chores. Her name is Sweetgrass Woman, but you'll call her Liz. Jim, you're a lucky man, and we wish you both well. Now, while they all wait for the trade wagons to arrive, Captain Bonneville has something on his mind. We sure hope it isn't another wedding. We can't stand much more emotional strain. Nope, it isn't matrimony, it's horses. Sublette is an expert on the Indian languages, and he's doing the interpreting. From the looks of things, they might be stirring up a horse race. Bonneville is a sportsman, and you can bet Sublette and the chief aren't running behind when it comes to promoting a horse race. Yeah, all right. It is going to be a horse race. Bonneville just called for his horse and a bundle of blankets. Well, the chief has his horse, but, well, that's one way to win a horse race, I guess, is going to offer a little whiskey to the chief. But he notices that Indian horse doesn't have a saddle. He's going to lighten things up a little bit here, I think. All right, now he's waiting for the chief to get on his horse, but the chief isn't going to do it. Well, all right. Chief's going to have somebody small ride a horse. He's got somebody small to ride a horse. You may have to go out and get lighter horses. But no, I think they've made a bargain now. Here they go. All right, and they're running. Looks like it's been a close one. And they're down to the wire, and the chief has won it. Well, the chief gets his pile of blankets, but the way Bonneville wants to butter up that Indian, it looks like this could be the first fixed race in the Green River Valley. Chief is busting out with pride, and it could be that Bonneville will end up with all the furs he can handle. At the rendezvous, just like in a county fair back east, everyone has a chance to participate in the festivities. Now we see a group of Indian children coming together to determine to show the grown-ups all they've learned in the last year, their dance steps. Like kids at most dances, I think they're a little shy, but I believe they're going to come. Yeah, here they are. By the way, those young men down there beating on those poles are engaged in an Indian gambling game called the Game of Hand. It requires very quick reflexes and a lot of practice. As you see, these dances can get pretty intricate. There is one man who has come to the rendezvous searching neither fur nor empire. Instead, he travels the lonely trails of the wilderness seeking souls. He's crossed every canyon and plain from the Arkansas River to the Flathead. Father Pierre Jean de Smet, a Jesuit of the Order of Poverty. Even the robes he wears on his back do not belong to him. Being alone in the wilderness, he's become an old hand. Sometimes lightly attended but always on foot. Wherever he goes, he makes friends. The Indians hold him in deep respect and love him greatly. They call him Black Robe, And today he will hold the first Mass between the Continental Divide and the Sierra Nevadas. He will call it the Prairie Mass. Of the Prairie Mass, the old Indian chief pledges, "We are all unfamiliar with your God, but now that we have the good fortune of having Black Robe among us, we will listen to his voice, and we will submit to the religious reforms that he suggests." Black Robe, Father DeSmit, brings his God to the native peoples with this ancient blessing. Benedictio Dei omnipotentis Patris, et Filii et Spiritus Sancti descendat super vos, et poniat semper. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. They follow his motions with awe, realizing there is a presence here they have not seen before and do not yet understand. Now, on the fringes of the camp, the first dust is seen, the creak of the wheels, and the hauler comes up, wagons coming in. And here's the first wagon. It's the American Fur Company, and the trade wagons that everyone has been waiting to see for so long. The fur in those packs is twitching to break out now, and the real business of the rendezvous is about to begin. These folks have been waiting a long time, but the party will start immediately. Now here with his lead wagon is Andrew Drips. Andrew Drips is the angry young man of the wilderness. With his American Fur Company, Drips has fought the competition all the way, never giving an inch, doing his very best, and when the opportunity presented itself, his very worst. This time it looks like he's beaten the Rocky Mountain Fur Company. He's here first, and aside from Bonneville, he's got the trade to himself. That is, until the Rocky Mountain pulls in. Yeah, Drips is running a mighty good trade here. Doesn't look like Bridger's all that happy with it either. Wait a second, I think I see the first wagons of the Rocky Mountain Fur Company. They weren't too far behind the American. Yeah, here they are. Well, Drips did get a jump on the Rocky Mountain Fur Company this time, and he's gotten a pile of the trade. Rocky Mountain just got here. But we wonder if old Broken Hand, Tom Fitzpatrick, doesn't maybe have an ace up his sleeve. Tom Fitzpatrick was born in Ireland in 1799 and came to St. Louis in 1822. His boyhood in the slums of Dublin had tempered him well for the rough and tumble of the fur trade. He signed up with General Ashley for that first trip into the interior. From then on, he's been here, and he'll probably stay until the frontier is done. A faulty gun exploded in his hand, and the Indians call him Broken Hand. He's a great friend of Father DeSmith, the missionary. Well, we thought for once Drips was going to get the best of Sublet, Bridger, and Fitzpatrick, but it looks like those birds have played their ace, and Drips is mad enough to whip a gunny sack full of wildcats. Drips has good reason to be mad. Last winter, he and Fitzpatrick got together and agreed that neither of them would bring any whiskey to the rendezvous, at least not for trade. Uncle Sam has taken a very dim view of peddling the stuff to the Indians. Now, Fitzpatrick has double-crossed Drips. He's getting off with more of the fur. By the way, that whiskey cut several times is selling for $10 a pint. It costs 30 cents a gallon in St. Louis. Drips is stomping mad, shaking his fist. You damn fools, you shouldn't have done it, because next year I'll be back, and by golly, you better look out. Uh-oh. I guess if he can't beat him on this one, he's going to join him. Well, that's the way it goes. They'll do anything they can to wreck one another's trade one minute, and the next they go on a big bash together. We'll bet that Andrew Drips isn't through yet, though. Ladies and gentlemen, we have before us now the Green River Valley's first dude. He's that Scotsman, Sir William Drummond Stewart, younger son of Scottish nobility, captain of British cavalry and a veteran of Waterloo. He's already spent some summers here and plans on spending more, maybe some winters too, if he doesn't inherit the family title and have to return to Scotland. Sir William can hold off a band of hostile Blackfeet right along with Bridger and Carson, but he has more fun than 10 men. It's been suggested that Bonneville might be doing some plain and fancy spying for Uncle Sam. Well, it could also be that Sir William could have similar business here for his king, William IV of England. Even though this is all possible, these two gentlemen are like the competing fur traders, willing to call a truce and have fun at the rendezvous. Sir William, being the perfect country squire, couldn't possibly move without an attendant. This year, he brought along Antoine Clement. Antoine is an independent child of the wilderness and not always the perfect gentleman's gentleman. If he disapproves of what Sir William does, he just plain gives him hell in all the languages of the frontier. Of course, Sir William doesn't take this lying down. He cusses back and threatens to knock Antoine's brains out. They've almost come to blows more times than a lodgepole pine has needles, but they're inseparable companions. Sir William plans to take Antoine to Scotland this winter. Antoine is only half Indian, but he will be presented as a full-blood chieftain. When these two buddies get together, the good folks of Persia are in for plenty of action. Although Sir William Drummond Stewart has many boon companions in the mountains, among his greatest hell-raising partners is Jim Bridger, you see there. Last winter in Scotland, Sir William picked up a present for old Gabe, and now it looks like he's about to give it to him. What you got in that box there? Well, it looks like the ceremonial armor of Sir William's regiment, the British Life Guards. So Jim, who's a captain of the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, is really starting to look his rank now. The Blackfeet always said he had a tough hide. Wait till the arrows start bouncing off those buckskins. Now we have Lucien Fontenelle, the mystery man of the mountains. He speaks with a strong but highly refined accent. Some say he is of royal French blood, but that doesn't keep him from being a good hand in a tight scrape, or one of the toughest competitors in the fur trade. He's a partner of Andrew Dripp's in the American Fur Company. This year, his affairs, as well as some problems with the firewater, held him in St. Louis, and it was until it was too late to come out with his own company, so he rode out with the opposition. By fall, his drinking will have cost him command of the company, but by next year, he'll be back on the wagon. Coming before us now are the Pony Dancers, a group of young Indians renowned for their horsemanship. And there you have them, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give a big hand for the pony dancers. It wasn't all trappers, traders, Indians, and playboys who came to the rendezvous. The missionaries came too. On July 1st, 1836, Narcissa Whitman and Eliza Spaulding became the first white women to cross the Continental Divide, and they rolled into the rendezvous 6 days later. They and their missionary husbands didn't come here to save these particular souls. They're on their way to Oregon, the first of many settlers to follow, symbolizing doom for the mountain man and his profane ways. Dr. Marcus Whitman, as you know, has been here before, having come out with Samuel Parker, and he is an able medical missionary. He's traveled far among the Nez Perce and their related tribes. What he's seen has convinced him that the time is ripe for the establishment of missions. 2 years ago, he mounted his horse and headed east, stopping only long enough in the Rocky Mountains to search out good routes for overland travel and to perform that operation on Jim Bridger. In the east, he pleaded for funds to establish missions and schools in Oregon's Willamette Valley and to teach agriculture to the Nez Perce. His voice was heard and preparations were made for the long trip to the far west. One who listened to Dr. Whitman's lectures with great excitement and interest was Miss Narcissa Prentice, a vivacious spinster of 26. This lovely young lady with golden hair and a good singing voice decided that life could hold nothing better than to become the wife of a missionary and to help him minister to the people in the wilds of the great American West. We don't imagine he put up much of a fight. They were married, and the mission board decided that Narcissa could accompany her husband to the West if another couple could be recruited for the trip. So when the mission board called for a pair of volunteers to join the Whitmans, Henry and Eliza Spaulding filled the bill. The Reverend Henry Harmon Spaulding is pious and intolerant, but he is most sincere in facing the overwhelming task before him. He is also skilled in the difficult art of communicating with the Indians. Eliza Spaulding is as serious and hardworking as her husband. She's not strong, but her courage on this long, hard trip has never been surpassed. Her creed is, "The Lord is my shepherd, therefore I shall lack nothing. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil." Narcissa and Marcus will eventually die for their faith, scalped by the very Indians to whom they would minister. And Eliza will not survive long in the rigors of the frontier. Their courage and that of others like them will make the wilderness safe for more than a few hundred who are here today. looks like that little Indian boy's found a foundation garment there. Now, Dr. Whitman will read from the Bible. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, who made the heaven and the earth. He will not suffer my foot to be moved. He that keepeth me will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is my keeper. The Lord is thy shade on thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and forevermore. And now, interpreting in sign language for Reverend Spalding is an Indian maiden. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. God, be merciful upon us, that thy way may be known upon the earth, thy saving health among all nations. So the missionaries continue on their long, long journey. That thin trail that they are leaving will forge a nation and become known as the Oregon Trail. One who has come to the rendezvous and who one day will be the most famous is the artist Alfred Jacob Miller. Sir William Drummond Stewart wants something to take back to Scotland to show the home folks what it's like over here. So he's hired Miller to come up from New Orleans and paint as many scenes as he can. Sir William has also asked the Indians to parade for him in all their colorful splendor. Yeah, and it looks like even the trappers are going to get into the act. So here they come, all of them. As the Indians paraded for Sir William Drummond Stewart and Alfred Jacob Miller, so they paraded across the pages of history. This era is gone forever, and the pony tracks of the Indians and trappers and missionaries are covered by the prairie grasses. Only Miller's sketches remain to illustrate this saga of the Green River Valley. So, too, these mountains remain a permanent backdrop for the reenactment of this brief moment in Wyoming history.